Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank both of you. This has really been a fantastic hearing. I say that every week in this committee, by the way. But this really has been great. And I'm about to blow up everything my staff prepared for me because I think we've started a discussion that I'd like to carry just a little further. And you're going to find that when it comes to the Paris Accord, I'm probably the oddest member of Congress from a fossil fuel producing state, especially a right-wing Ulgar. But I kind of think that we should be in Paris, and I'll tell you why. While it was aspirational, I think we forget that oftentimes. Paris was aspirational, not regulatory. That was an important point. But the one thing, General McMaster, that I fear more than a large international body trying to do good things is a large international body that doesn't have us sitting at the head of the table. And to that end, I do think that we can bring some things that are helpful. But one very specific characteristic of China that I want to ask you both about for a short answer, and then maybe we can expound on a couple of other things, is should China continue to be treated like a, quote, developing country? Because therein lies one of the challenges. We kind of make an excuse for them being able to do everything differently than us while they're our near peer adversary in many respects. And I would turn to Dr. Wright first.
Thank you, Senator. I mean, I view climate change as a major national security threat. I think it merits sort of involvement diplomatically and in all of these forms. I think you have it exactly right. It's important to shape those agreements. Paris wasn't perfect. I'm glad the U.S. is back in it, but I think looking forward, I think there's a wide array of strategies needed. Part of that's working with China, but part of it is actually working with other countries to create an environment in which, you know, China has to make better decisions.
And Senator, I would just say, I argued, unsuccessfully when I was in the job as National Security Advisor to stay in Paris for all the reasons that you mentioned. But then also, what I wrote about in this recent book is, in retrospect, I thought, hey, well, it wasn't all bad. There was a silver lining in that because it had been a false sense of security. And so I think that there certainly has to be more to be done. I will just mention that to connect these two issues, right, of energy security, economic statecraft, and of course, climate, it's important to recognize that China is the leader in renewable manufacturing because they stole our intellectual property, right? And they subsidized the manufacturing of solar panels and wind turbines at levels far below what the normal market would have borne, and dumped them on the international market to drive the U.S. companies who gave them that technology out of the global market. The same dynamic is at work now with batteries and electric cars. And so I think it's really important for us to recognize, this is not a free, fair, and reciprocal trade and economic relationship. And as you already alluded to in your question as well, they've never played by the rules. Right. Even under the rules of WTO in 2001, they just never played by the rules. And this is why when they make the great promises, when the party does, about global warming and carbon emissions, I would just say don't fall for it. Watch their actions, not their words.
Amen to all of that. And that's why I think if we sit at that table, and especially if we assume, and I think we ought to, a leadership role, we ought to shape a lot of the very things, and including those warnings about their behavior and the trust factor. I want to just give a little detail. I might also add, by the way, to all the technologies you're talking about, things like clean coal technologies. If in fact China is going to build 30 to 50, coal plants a year, perhaps the solution to carbon capture, utilization, storage comes from us, and we become the marketer of that technology, because I believe that the best will be in fact invented here, provided we don't kill our own industry, which is another factor altogether. I just raised this one issue that happened just last year that's always, I think it serves me anyway as an illustration of not being at the table. When Engie Gas, and if you represent an LNG company, Engie Gas had a deal to purchase U.S. liquid natural gas. The French government intervened, killed that deal, and instead they're buying that natural gas from Russia. Now it's not, you don't have to be an expert to realize that's a national security problem. But worse than that, the natural gas from Russia emits like 46% more emissions than the LNG coming from the United States.
Let alone a dirtier production process as well.
Yeah. All of that, exactly right. So anyway, I'd like to see us reform Paris by being in Paris. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Cramer.